It's cold, miserable and wet, and I should have stayed in bed. But what do you call us? Mad tea party, the mad
Dogs in English.
mad cyclist tea party. We're all going out in the wet and the cold. Overshoes. There's all different kinds. There's over socks, there's neoprene, there's waterproof, there's aerodynamic, there's toe covers, and then there's Arctic conditions. But what we're going to consider in this video is what we generally use overshoes for, to protect our feet from wind, dirt, water, and of course the cold. So firstly, we'll just have a brief look at the Arctic overshoe or bootie. Generally they're thicker in the neoprene, quite a bit thicker, 4, 5 or even 6 millimeters. Suede, soft on the inside to keep your feet nice and warm. Maybe a better cuff here. Sometimes the legs a bit longer, and they have maybe a second shell, thin shell on the outside, which keeps it a bit more water resistant. I don't have a waterproof bootie, but just pretend that's the waterproof one. Generally they're just, again, a thinner neoprene with a waterproof coating plastic on the outside. Sometimes they're also a bit higher. I think ASOS make one that's really tall, but they're very expensive. Right, but what most of us are going to be interested in buying and using around the world is a general neoprene overshoe to keep our tootsies warm and dry. Now these are my new ones, BBB brand, and I chose BBB because of these. These are my old BBBs. They've lasted me 4 winters, 4 seasons, so they're worth talking about. Well, firstly, let's consider what you can expect from your overshoes. Number one is to consider what sort of weather conditions you're going to be riding in. How cold and wet is it really going to be? And the other thing is your bodily functions as well. Some people are more prone to cold extremities, cold toes, fingers, nose and ears. So they're the 2 things you really need to consider firstly. Another thing to consider is ventilation. Some shoes are really well ventilated, have lots of mesh on the top and some holes in the sole as well to allow lots of airflow. So you may want to have 2 pair of shoes, one for the ventilation for summer and another pair which has almost a closed upper and no holes in the bottom, so that way water won't get in through the bottom and there's less likelihood of it getting in through the top. So that's 2 options if you can afford to have 2 shoes. Wear your winter ones with your overshoes and your summer ones which are well ventilated. Just ride when it's not raining and cold. Now if you are on a budget and you've only got 1 pair of shoes and it has holes in the bottom, well, you can fill them up for the winter time. Just get some silicone and put it in there, and once your winter's finished you can dig it out. I've done that before and it works really well. That stops water from getting in and soaking the inner sole and then your sock. The other thing, if you are going to ride and you've got no choice and you know you're going for a ride and it's really wet, this is an extreme, you can put a plastic bag over your shoe first and then your overshoe as well. But generally you don't need to do that. But filling in the sole with silicone, that certainly helps stop the water getting in. Buy your overshoes according to your shoe size. If you take a size 45 shoe, then go obviously for size 45 overshoes. They might say on the label 44 to 46, that's fine. If your overshoes are too small, they're going to start catching on protrusions on your shoe, like on the buckle and the Velcro bits, and they're going to start eating away at the inside of your neoprene. You end up with holes through your overshoe, and that's no good. Now, if you buy overshoes that are too big, they're going to be too sloppy, and they're going to start letting in the wind and the rain. So you don't want that, so get the right size overshoe. Now, most overshoes are manufactured to fit thin, hard sole shoes, road shoe. So putting the overshoe on, once you've got them, is actually quite simple with the road shoe. It just slips on nicely and then you zip it up and it fits and your cleat protrudes through. Now, if you're going to be wanting to use the same set of overshoes for a mountain bike shoe, the mountain bike shoe has got a chunkier sole, a bit sticking out here to walk on, and generally, quite often, the upper is a little bit thicker as well. So make sure your same shoes, you might need to take your shoe along to the shop or wherever when you're buying your overshoes, that it fits properly. So when you put your overshoe on, you'll find the chunky bits of the sole are going to stick underneath out. Make sure your overshoe does not go over onto those chunky bits, otherwise you're going to be walking on the overshoe, on the edge of the overshoe, stitching and wearing it out. So make sure it fits on your mountain bike shoe properly as well. And while you're in the shop buying your overshoe, you might want to go for a really thick overshoe. Well, be wary, because here's your crank. When you go home and you clip in to your pedal, you may find the overshoe, an extra thick one, will rub on your crank in here. So the only thing you can do is adjust your cleat so that you come out further. That's called the Q factor. Now you may not want to do that, and even if you did that to its widest extent, it may still rub. So be wary. Extra thick overshoes can rub on your crank. Wear the overshoe out and put a mark on your crank as well. No overshoe is going to be 100% waterproof. All you can do is delay the onset of water creeping in. The most common thing is when you're riding along, water sprays off of your front tyre onto the shin of your leg and runs down your leg into your shoe up here through the cuff. So make sure your zip's well up and that you've tightened this quite firmly so the cuff on your leg there is quite firm, and that delays the onset of the water coming down that way, because that's the most common way it comes in, apart from under your sole there.
Here's my old overshoes. They're 4 years old. Our cold weather here lasts about 4 to 5 months, and I ride both mountain bike and road bike in these overshoes 3 times a week. They're still quite weatherproof, but not quite as good as when they were brand new. This is underneath the toe box area, and you can see there's holes from these protrusions sticking out in my mountain bike shoe, which I've been walking on. So obviously, the more you walk in them, the more you wear out the sole area. And here's some more holes on the side, caused by the buckle on the shoe. The cuff, well, that's fine and still very elastic, just some exterior nylon bits fraying away. The join on the upper is still excellent, not one bit of stitching coming away yet. And here's the cuff again, just showing it's still elastic. Turning the overshoe inside out, you can see the stitching on the inside of the upper is still perfect as well. And the other shoe, exactly the same, excellent as well. And here you can see the inside screen layer of the neoprene has got some general wear. Velcro under here, still very strong. And here you can see the heels have got general wear and tear as well. It's pretty hard to avoid when you're riding a mountain bike and you've got fences and gates to jump over and rocks to walk on. And despite all that, you can see the elasticity of the cleat apertures are still very good as well. The velcros on the cuffs, they're still very sticky. And as for the YKK zips, they've never let me down.
Well, that's it for my old BBB overshoes. I'll certainly be keeping them as emergency spares. And welcome to the new ones. These are pretty much the same construction as the old ones. There's hardly any difference. By the way, you can still get the plain black. I've just gone for the fluoro colour this time. And fluoro colour, well, it will fade over time, but it may take a while. We'll see how long that takes. Now, these ones are 3mm thick neoprene. And neoprene, of course, is used in wetsuits. So when it gets completely wet, it keeps the warmth in. So as with the previous BBB ones, the new ones, of course, will fit both road and mountain bike shoes really, really well. These are easy to slip on. and a nice snug fit conforms to the shape of the shoe really well. I've got a generous amount of holes here for different size and shapes cleats, but not too airy to let the cold air in, so that's good. They've also got little reflective bits, highly reflective little tabs on the base of the heel there. With the zip, it's a YKK zip again, same as the old one, faultless for the whole 4 years that I've had them and still going. For the sizing, BBB's a big company, better bike business by the way, BBB. So you'll have no problem with the size you order will be the size to fit your shoe, I'm sure of that. With the stitching, again, extremely heavy duty stitching, really good. Of course, the more you're going to walk around on your shoes with your overshoes on, you're going to wear them out. So try and avoid walking around with your overshoes as much as possible. But even so, getting 4 years out of a set of overshoes, you're going to do pretty good. These particular ones are 3mm neoprene ones were $31 Australian. If you want to go to the Arctic model, which is the thicker one to keep your tootsies warmer, they're about $46 Australian. Now, when you're washing these, don't put them in the washing machine. All you do, if they're really dirty, like you've been mountain biking and they're really muddy, stick them in a bucket of water for a while, bring them out, and then put them under the shower and wring them out gently under the shower and hang them up to naturally dry, and they'll be fine. So, would I recommend these overshoes? Well, I went and bought myself another pair, didn't I?